Thank you for joining us for the second half hour with the Factor Uncensored tonight. There are all kinds of milestones that signify crossing into adulthood. Facing criminal charges is probably the most unconventional one. The Factor team has been watching the headlines, and we noticed a lot more teens have been charged as adults for crimes. You probably remember this viral video of 17-year-old Brendan Deppa attacking a teacher's aide at his school in February. Investigators say he lost it after she took his Nintendo Switch during class. Video shows him shoving her to the ground, kicking and punching her repeatedly. Deppa is now 18 years old and will be charged as an adult for the attack. Now to this, 13-year-old Derek Rosa will also be charged as an adult. He is accused of killing his mother in front of her newborn last month. According to police, he sent pictures of his mother's corpse after stabbing her to death. These cases should be more reason for teens to think twice before committing life-changing crimes. Joining me to talk about it, gang expert Reginald OG1 Gordon. Glad to have you here on The Factor Uncensored. And we see more teens, more young people putting their crimes, which I don't know if they realize it's crimes. They think they're having fun, but they're putting it on social media. And because they're putting it on social media, people are enraged, angered about it. And then law enforcement investigators have no choice but to come at them as adults.
I was looking at both these clips that you sent today. One of them, we know that it was specifically known from the school point that he had mental illness. He was a mental illness patient, and therefore, when we dealing with young people, especially at that ages of 17 to 34, we know that at that rate, that high alarm of suicide, a high alarm of violence come from them. And we got to know the triggers when we know that young people are walking around when they've been diagnosed with mental illness at that age bracket. You know what I'm saying? So we know that we living in a time to where we haven't really done our actual homework in engaging in young people after the pandemic. We know even before the pandemic, it was a lot of issues going on with our young people. Even here in Texas alone, we are at a crisis with our juvenile justice system because we can't keep enough staff to even oversee them from the PTSD that the staff is suffering from. Most of your juvenile justice systems are closing down because they got to keep our juveniles locked up 23 out of 24 hours a day. So we're creating a generation of young people that's angry and mad at the communities that they come from. So like I say all the time, our children gonna get attention one way or another. A young man and a father brought their son exactly like this young man here that killed his mother. They brought their son in, grade 8 student, doing great, but they couldn't understand why he just up and outraged and exploded on the mother. And then after we sit down in our groups to find out what the actual root cause of his problems is, even though the dad go to work and come home and try to do his best as a father, the young man was mad because he wasn't getting the proper attention that he felt that his dad was supposed to give him. So again, our children gonna eventually take all the anger, the pressure out on us if we don't figure out a way. How do we deal with this anxiety? How do we deal with depression? How do we deal with young people from the ages of 10 to 35 is committing suicide? That's a question we must ask. If you commit suicide from 10 to 35, something is going on in the minds of our children.
And what I hear from you also in both those cases, and then when you say suicide at 10 years old, that we are failing our children. We're failing the young people in the community. How are we missing these signs? Or are there signs that we're not paying attention to?
Well, there's signs that we're paying attention to, but we live in a society where not only the pressures of the parents are going through, we're dealing with pressures that young people don't know how to express their feelings. And we know in the black community, black men specifically, because the suicide rate amongst them is highest amongst all the rest of the young kids, because we don't know how to express what feelings are. Feelings in the minds of black boys seem to be mushy, gay, and we just don't have people in comfort zone and safe places to where we can speak what's actually going on with us. And we got to find ways to build centers and trauma centers to where children feel safe to go in and express themselves. And we as grown folks got to break the stigma. We got to quit treating people with mental illness as something that's, no, you're just lazy, you're sorry, you just don't want to work. Depression is depression, and we got to call it what it is, and we got to give young people spaces, and we got to be as elderly and grown folks to where children are freely to come to us and express what they're going through.
Now, have we as a society, adults,
right,
not the children, but adults as well, become so preoccupied with ourselves on social media, we may be missing what's going on in our household?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We have become, and you know, like I say, 90% of the young people that I deal with, they are addicted to that social media phone that they did. I mean, you can't keep it out the hand the next 10 minutes. We have to say, how do we find time to break away from social media and sit down and have casual conversation, dinner table discussions with our children? We're going to have to find a way to get back to that. Other than that, our children will get worse. And exactly who they turn on, those that's close to them. And I've always said, as an anger management counselor, young people that's angry and mad, if he mad at somebody outside the house, 90% of the time, they take it out on the closest person that they love. Like I say, the reason why that young man probably stabbed his mama, it was probably a flag that she missed, something that happened to him at school, something that happened to him in the community. 90% of the time, they take it out on their loved ones that's close to them.
All right. Reginald Gordon, always good to see you.
Good to see you.
Appreciate your